All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first session of Mind Check, Black Mental Wellness during Rona. Before we get started, we would like to invite everyone to participate in the conversation online by using the hashtag MindCheck. Also, if you would like to submit a question, you can do so on Facebook Live. We know that we said we would be on YouTube Live. However, it will be posted on YouTube after the session. So submit a question on Facebook Live, and we will take those questions later on in the night. So this has been, a really odd, scary, unnerving, and catastrophic time, as we all know. And Black people have absorbed the blunt force of that impact. And we also know that we always have to save ourselves. We always have to take care of ourselves. And we can't help but think that the premature opening of states might have happened because the victims look like you and me. We know from the statistics that Black people are 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19, and the statistics are staggering. And we must remember that it's easy for those numbers to just hang out there, and they seem like numbers, but they're made up of people, our people. And so we wanted to offer a space to process and try to take care of us. And so tonight, we want to create a space to talk about protecting our peace. And Makita is going to tell us a little bit more about what to expect tonight.
Yes, thank you, Megan. And this whole event that we've created was in the understanding of all the systemic inequalities and inadequacies that we've experienced as people of color. So the Austin Justice Coalition, Minds Over Melanin, and the Rosa Rebellion came together to create this webinar series where we can bring you all information and do it in a safe space while also providing an open dialogue so we can really hear from you, hear what your needs are, and provide support in whatever way we can. So tonight, as we kick off this webinar series, which we're super excited about, we're going to be discussing how to protect your peace while in the home. So we understand that everyone is going through all these different changes on top of all the things that we were already going through before. But now we have this whole pandemic that our future is so uncertain. So we understand that people are going through a lot of stress. And then we're, seeing things in the news that are traumatizing to us. Rest in peace to the people, to Ahmaud and other people who've recently, their stories have come out. And today we're gonna be talking about, one, how can we identify stress in ourselves? Because stress does look different for everybody. How can we cope with stress in that moment? So like when we're in the midst of the chaos, how can we really deal with that in that moment? And then how can we start to build a lifestyle that is more aligned with just being in a more peaceful state? So hopefully we'll be able to give you guys some good tips throughout this webinar. And then also we're gonna leave some time at the end of the webinar for you all to send us questions. So actually send questions throughout, while we're all talking, send questions throughout this, and then we'll be able to answer those at the end. Okay, so in line with protecting our peace, one thing we want to do is to go ahead and start with a brief meditation. And I know some of us may not have meditated before or even thought about it, or it might seem too woo-woo for some of us. But meditation is simply just a moment to take a pause, a moment to breathe, give yourself a break from the day to kind of rise above all the stress and just to evoke some more calm in your body. Okay. So this is going to be a short meditation just to kind of introduce us to it. And we will bring this back throughout the other webinar series. So that way we can also develop a practice that's helpful for us. So go ahead and find yourself in a comfortable position. If you happen to be watching this while you're operating a vehicle, just be mindful of that. Feel free to do the breathing with us, but do not close your eyes. We want to keep everybody safe during this, okay? So go ahead as you're now seated in a comfortable position. If you're in a chair, make sure your feet are flat on the ground, and you can place your hands on your knees. So I place my hands on my knees, palms down. Make sure your spine is straight. And I want you to just start to become aware, bringing your attention to this moment right here, forgetting about anything that was happening before or anything that's to come, but just bring your attention here and to begin to breathe at a comfortable pace for you. Allow your eyes to close down. And just breathe at your own pace. Just focusing on your breath. So we're going to do 3 deep breaths together, and these breaths are designed to help relax our body. So I'm going to have you all inhale through your nose for a count of 3, and then I'm going to have you exhale out of your mouth for a count of 6, and I will cue you all in on the breaths. And one thing to remember is as you're breathing in, I want you to allow your belly to expand. So as you breathe in, your belly should fill up with air. And then as you exhale out, I just want you to imagine your body just melting down. I want you to release everything from the day as you exhale out. Okay? So let's go ahead and empty out our breath so we can do it all together. So go ahead and empty out whatever breath is inside. And let's inhale through your nose. And then release out through your mouth, allowing your body to just melt down. Again, let's inhale through your nose for a count of 3. And then exhale out through your mouth, nice and slow, relaxing down as that breath leaves your body. Last breath together, breathing in through your nose. And breathing out through your mouth. Just noticing how your body feels in this space. Bring your lips to close and begin to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Trying to focus on your breath. It doesn't matter what could be going on around you, what might have happened before. Our attention, our focus is here in this moment. Continuing to follow your breath. Continuing to let that breath bring in more relaxation and more peace. Feeling safe in your space. Just observing your body. And if any thoughts arise, which tends to happen, and that's okay, allow those thoughts to pass as you bring your attention back to your breath. Observing your breath as it flows in and flows out. Allowing yourself to feel relaxed in this moment, knowing that you are safe, knowing that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Taking a few more breaths. We'll go ahead and close out our meditation the same way we started. We're going to use those same 3 breaths, inhaling for a count of 3, exhaling for a count of 6. This time the breath will bring us back to the room, bringing us back into awareness. Let's go ahead and inhale in and release out. Good. Again, inhale in and release out. Coming back to the room, feeling prepared, feeling ready, receptive to receive this information. Last breath together, breathing in. Coming back with a clear mind, allow your eyes to flutter open as you release. And welcome back, everybody. All right, so that is our meditation, and I'm going to hand it back over to Megan, who's going to introduce the speakers for today.
All right. Thanks for that, Makita. Thank you for grounding us. We know that for some people, it might be a little uncomfortable, but we hope it can be a tool that you can use to help yourself relax and be present in the moment. So I'm excited for this panel. I'm excited to introduce D. Ray McKesson, who is no stranger probably to the majority of y'all. He's a civil rights activist focused primarily on issues of innovation, equity, and justice. He's born and raised in Bmore, Baltimore. He graduated from Bowdoin College and holds honorary doctorates from the New School and the Maryland Institute College of Art, and is a leading voice in the Black Lives Matters movement and a co-founder of Campaign Zero. D-Ray has worked to connect individuals with knowledge and tools and provide citizens and policymakers with common sense policies that ensure equity. He is also an author, and he wrote the book On the Other Side of Freedom, The Case for Hope, which we certainly all need right now. So welcome, D-Ray. Then we have Makita Moore, who is a graduate student. You just met Makita, who led us in our meditation. She's currently pursuing a PhD in clinical child pediatric psychology at the Department of Clinical and Health Psychology at the University of Florida, and is a recipient of the McKnight Doctoral Fellowship. Makita also serves as a mindset and lifestyle consultant supporting people's mental wellness, and is the Gainesville City lead ambassador for SLICK, a networking and personal professional empowerment brand. So we're excited to have Makita, who also has helped us plan this event. And then there's me, Megan Harding. I'm the co-founder of Rosa Rebellion, along with Virginia Cumberbatch. Rosa Rebellion is a platform for creative activism by and for women of color. I'm also, by profession, a civil rights attorney. I'm a justice advocate, and I'm passionate about racial and gender equity. And in my day-to-day job, I encounter the consequences of systemic inequity frequently, and I work to disrupt normative systems and to eradicate it. I hold my BA and JD from the University of Texas at Austin. So with that, welcome everyone. Let's get started. First question really is just a check-in, like, how are you doing, and how has the coronavirus impacted your life? We'll go to D-Ray.
So I'm okay. So I have COVID, and I lost my sense of taste and smell, which is how I knew I got it. I tested positive now 3 times, so I still have COVID. So I'm hoping that the next test will come back negative, which is good. I'm one of the lucky ones that my symptoms were literally just loss of taste and smell. So my smell and taste are back now. I stopped using the Febreze trash bags because it was a waste of trash bags, so I couldn't smell anything anyway. And then a couple of days ago, I walked by the trash can and it was funky, and I was like, okay, my smell is back. So let me use the real trash bags again. So it has been okay. I think as an organizer, it has been interesting because so many people are used to sort of organizing in person, and all of a sudden, like, we can't go nowhere, right? Like, everybody's sort of stuck in the house. And it's been interesting to remember 2 things. One is that everything they told us about our neighbors is untrue. People had told us that, when there's a scarcity of resources, people are going to kill each other to get them, that we are not going to come together, that people cannibalize each other, that that is what happens. And actually, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen beautiful displays of community. We've seen people work together and do things that they never otherwise would do. We've seen incredible creativity. And the second thing is that all the things they told us were impossible, we see that they're possible. It's like in cities like Baltimore, where I live, we're feeding every single kid breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They told us we didn't have enough food for that, right? And we see across the country all these things that they were like, there's no money. You just found $3 trillion. I thought we couldn't afford healthcare, right? So that has actually heartened me when we think about this moment.
Yeah, so I guess you've been in isolation, just particularly just, being alone. How's that been?
It is, being alone and not being able to taste was really awful because, some days it's like, I guess I got to eat dinner, but it's no flavor. Besides that, it's been a lot of FaceTimes, a lot of house party, but it has been lonely. You know, it's like sometimes I want to be around people, but I don't want to be on FaceTime, and there's not really an option for that, right? So it's been a lot of like, let me acknowledge that this is not normal, that I don't need to follow the schedule of like waking up at 9 and like I need to make a new schedule because nothing that we're going through is normal. And also I have to figure out like how to sleep and those sort of things because, you know, I had to use a face mask recently because I'm staying up so late just because my body's not tired. And I've had to really like get that together. So I've been learning, but it has not been, it's not been easy.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, everyone has a little bit of Zoom fatigue or video chat fatigue, you know, feeling more tired. Definitely been feeling more like, man, I don't want to see another text message, another video call, because you're just so exhausted at the end of the day. So what about you, Makita? How are you doing?
I would say I started off feeling very ambitious about the whole quarantine situation. I will say that I am a person who is in a place of privilege in that as a grad student, I have a stipend. So I'm still receiving, you know, money. I have a home and all this stuff. So to me, I initially saw as an opportunity for me to really just dive down into my studies, into building my brand, picking up new coaching clients, things like that, which it definitely has been. And at the same time, I've had to kind of come to terms with, am I really processing what's going on? Like, and like D-Ray said, like being realistic with myself about the schedule I'm setting. Like, yeah, I'm still trying to get up at 6:30, you know, go for a run, do my reading, do my meditation. At the same time, I have to find balance and like, you know, this is still something significant, you know, going on. And yes, you have all these great coping skills, but you still have to, you can't be, I feel like I was a little bit out of touch with things. And then I've been getting a little bit more stressed out with my family, just because I went to go visit them recently and I didn't want to, you know, I had kind of been somewhat out and about, but I want to make sure that they were safe. So that stress kind of affected me a little bit, but overall, I feel like I've been managing it well. I haven't been as productive as I would like as far as school, but I've been productive in other ways. But overall, I feel like the lifestyle that I have kind of prepared me for something like this, even though I do wish I could be around, you know, family and friends a lot more. I'm still able to, you know, continue to progress at a pace that's different, but still good for me. I've definitely had my hard days, character building days.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm naturally an introvert, so I thought, oh, okay, like, you know, I have to stay at my house. I love staying at my house. I wish I could be in my house more. And then and then over time it's a little bit like, okay, you know, I'm starting to see the effects of it, just wanting to like be outside. And for a long time I was like really, really extreme because I have a newborn. He's 4 months. And so when this started, he was 2 months. And so
Got a
I baby, yeah. And so just our protocols have been really, really extreme. And so, you know, just noticed in the last like 2 or 3 weeks, just feeling like, you know, you miss your family, you have a new baby, the family expects to be around the baby. And now that time just looks really, really different, but also recognizing, you know, my privilege, my job pivoted really quickly to working from home. And I went back from maternity leave like to working from home. And so there's some privilege in that, right? Like one, I have a job, but two, being able to just be with my kid for longer. But yeah, I started to notice a little bit of that disconnection. And so doing everything we can, you know, my mom is I actually not going to say her age. I almost did and I would have got in trouble, but my mom is older than me, of course. I'll just say that. And you know, she's learning how to work the Zoom, and so we did a family workout and stuff like that. So that's been cool. But I'm gonna toss to you, Makita, to talk to us a little bit about how we can identify what's going on with us.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Megan. So the next question we kind of want to address was, how are we all experiencing anxiety and depression, right? So that might look different from one person to another. whether it's depending on your sex or your race, your culture, whatever it is, that can look different. And one thing that we want to be aware of is when it comes to a lot of the empirical research out on mental health and mental well-being, we have to remember that the samples that this information is derived from is predominantly middle-class white males, right? Because those are the samples that are available. So when it comes to understanding what symptoms of depression and anxiety look like, we have to also consider, what does that look like for me? So D-Ray, what is anxiety and depression? How can you tell if you're experiencing anxiety or depression for you?
So for me, I sometimes can get stuck in a pity cycle. And we think about pity as like when we believe the worst things about ourselves, right? Or like the worst things people say about ourselves. So I'll like wake up and I'll see something, or I'll like be like, I can't, da-da-da-da, or like a da-da-da. Another thing that I've realized, and I just talked to my therapist about this, is that one of the consequences of college, and I love Bowdoin, and Bowdoin was incredible, but I was taught that the way to write a paper or write a thing was to be in conversation with all the people that wrote before you, right? So like if I'm going to offer an idea about feminism, then I need to read all of Bell and all of Audrey and all of the data. Like that's like the way I have to, that's like what it means to sort of put forth ideas. But what that sometimes leads to me is this anxiety that like I can never actually like map all the conversations that came before me. So I actually can't do anything. So I get this paralysis of movement because I feel like the only way to be in conversation with anything is to read all the stuff before me or do all that. And normally I'm so busy that like I can push that out of my mind because I just can't do it because I have other things to do. But now I'm home all day. So it's like in my mind, I'm like, you know what? I think I could read all of Bell. And it's like, DeRay, you are not going to read all of Bell Hooks this week. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I'm going to do Feminism is for Everybody, and I'm going to do some other stuff. So I've had to really be a little more realistic with myself and say, like, this is not normal. The time is not normal. This moment is not normal. So I need to stop trying to like do the things that I have done before. So like my whole schedule, I'm eating like lunch later, I'm eating dinner later. And I was stressed out about that before. And I'm like, late is just where we at. It's just late is it. I just have to figure it out. So that's the way it shows up. But for me, the depression is like, sometimes it doesn't lead to purposelessness as much as it leads to me feeling like, you know what, I like don't have anything to contribute, or like I don't really, that idea wasn't that good, or that like critique of that wasn't very smart, or like I need to call 15 people before I make this decision because I need as much feedback as possible because I don't know what's the right, like I couldn't possibly know what's right for myself. Like that is sort of the spiral that I get in, and I'm pretty good at seeing it happen. I'm not good at getting out of it. So I can like name it. I'm like, this is happening. This is pity. I'm like in a spiral. And I'm like, I know this isn't good. And like the therapist is actually to help me like develop tools to get out of it because I don't know how to get out of it on my own sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that, D-Ray, because we will talk about how can we get out of those cycles as well. So for you, it seems like a lot of that self-doubt and kind of just like ruminating on things negatively is kind of how you can tell when you're headed into one of them little pits, right? What about you, Megan? How can you tell when you're experiencing either anxiety or depression or both?
Yeah, so mine is when like things slow down. And so went all the way through school, undergrad, law school, and then all of a sudden everything came to a halt. And it got really, really quiet. And so the challenge of something like this for me, isolation and things slowing down, is then I have racing thoughts, needing to, or feeling like I need to like rehash old stuff and like, spiraling that way. And then I also experienced, D-Ray, the paralysis when it just feels like there's too much. And so then I just don't want to do anything. And then I get mad at myself for like laying on the couch or whatever, which I don't do that because I have a newborn, but still like, just feeling like I didn't get as much done as I should have. And so, but there's like a guilt to it that feels heavy. It feels like, you're in a position of privilege. You should be knocking this stuff out. You should be good to go. So that's kind of how the anxiety shows up for me. Depression is more like less like sustained and more like days, right? Just like days where I just feel like I don't necessarily want to do anything at all, but it's less about like I have too much to do and more like I'm just kind of down. I just don't feel good. And then there are things that like compound that. So my job as a civil rights attorney, where I challenge, essentially I interrogate and challenge the criminal justice system or the criminal injustice system as it is currently designed. And so every single day I'm looking at all the ways that our systems weren't built for us and don't want to bend for us and really actively harm us. And when I say us, I mean Black people. And so I also take that in every single day on top of, you know, when we know that systemic inequities or we continue to watch assaults on the Black body. And I don't mean actually watch in terms of watching videos or things like that. I don't mean in commodification, but I mean, we know that one, coronavirus is more deadly for us, but then also like things like Brianna and Ahmaud and Sean and Nina, and watching what's happening, the violence that happens to us every day. So I do think that there is a racialized trauma that is unique, that shows up in our bodies and certainly shows up for me because of what I do professionally. And then that's compounded by basically just being a Black woman in America.
Yeah, and I feel like you and D Ray definitely bring a unique perspective on that, especially when it comes to the trauma side. Myself as a mental health professional, you know, I never really identified so much with that racialized trauma until recently. You know, having grown up in a predominantly white neighborhood and growing up with a lot of privilege, I never realized. I think I kind of was oblivious to a lot of that stuff until recently, where I'm like, I became more adamant about serving my community, because if I'm not serving my community, no one else is. And in doing so, and, you know, building that connection with our community, I now, you know, when those videos came out, I chose not to watch them because I knew the like, even just the thought of what potentially happened and played out was enough for me. So I think that's important for us to, when we can control some of that exposure, you know, to do what we can, but also be able to, if we do expose ourselves to it, which we are going to be anyways, knowing how to process that stuff, which we'll talk about as well. So for me, I can tell when I'm anxious, I'm very physical. So I wear a lot of my anxiety in my body. I start to get tense. I can kind of feel my heart racing a little bit, just kind of feeling uneasy. And similarly, when I can kind of feel myself heading into, you know, kind of what I would consider like more of a depressive state, where I'm like feeling a little hopeless, sad, maybe overwhelmed, you know, I start to eat. I'm definitely an emotional eater. One thing I have done is I stock my house with only healthy things. So I might binge on some banana chips or some almonds, but I'm an emotional eater. So that's one thing, or me not wanting to, you know, to pop up out of bed and get my morning routine on, or when I do start to procrastinate. So like, I noticed that those are my signs. And it's important for all of us to be able to identify your signs and what anxiety and depression looks like for you. That way you can be, you know, take a step ahead of it and catch yourself from really going into one of those deep spirals. What about identifying it in other people? How can you guys identify, like if you have a friend who's in the house with you or a family member, what are things that you guys look out for?
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell talking to friends, but also just with my husband, I can tell when, you know, things are just overwhelming. Sometimes it looks more like restlessness, like a discontentment, right, with the moment, and just a restlessness. You're like flurrying about just doing stuff because you need to feel like you need to do something. And so definitely trying to be mindful of that. And I'm not sure that I'm the best at offering solutions, but I can definitely like see it and identify kind of when it's happening.
I think for me, I think the restlessness is right. I think also I've had some people that I haven't, that like we're friends, but we haven't stayed in touch a lot. And like I see people calling to just talk sometimes, and it feels very high schoolish in all the best ways, right? We're like, I'm doing my work, you doing your work. We just on FaceTime together. It feels like we were, in high school. Where it was like, how were you on the phone for 5 hours today? Like, what were you doing for 5 hours? And it was like we just being with each other. So I've been like, I get it. So there's some friends who like we on the phone for 2 hours, and an hour that is like cumulatively us like doing our thing. And it's like I get it. You need a connection. I need a connection. So I've seen that a little bit. My friends with parents have probably been the people I've struggled the hardest to support because my friends with parents, my friends with kids. So I have one of my best friends has a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they are running him and his wife ragged. And my sister has a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, and whereas I'm like, I was so bored today. They are like, I would pray for boredom. They are like, give me boredom. I can't wait to nap time. So that has been interesting. So like for the friend who has little kids, I like got them, I found this like $30 house on Amazon. It's like one of those big cardboard houses that really is like a coloring book, So I try to like, can I find cool toys or something that aren't gonna like clutter the house, but like will add to some of the fun and excitement. But they've been the hardest people to support.
Send them some food. Just send them some food.
Right, some Postmates.
Yeah, just Postmates. They're good. I want to talk. We have some questions from some people who are tuning in, so I want to ask a couple of these. One person asked, reading the news, staying plugged in, etc., seems so much more exhausting now. What are some suggestions to create a balance of nurturing the mental, emotional exhaustion while still staying informed about everything? And just a caveat to that is I think that's particularly true for Black people because the news just keeps telling us like that we're dying or whatever. And so like, what are some ways that y'all do that you balance?
For me, honestly, I don't really plug into the news because the news to me is primarily negative. And I haven't watched the news for years because I understand the effects it has on me and a lot of other people. It's very entertainment and fear driven. So I would say if you want to be able to stay plugged in, read your news online. Don't sit there and have to listen to all the killings and everything first, and then they get to the COVID stuff and they leave with the COVID deaths and all this stuff. Read, set a timeout for the day, maybe like 10 minutes. Don't do it first thing in the morning, but sometime in the evening after you got yourself cool, you got yourself calm, did your morning routine, take some time to read up what's coming up in the news. Are there any new restrictions? And then if you want to follow certain Instagram pages like, Rosa Islam, like he stays very up to date on what's going on, gives you real recommendations without trying to scare you. So I would say, plug in there, and also doing practices like meditation. That way you can be attuned with your body to know, okay, I've been watching too much, or I need to unplug right now. You can be more self-aware. That way you can notice that, and you can get yourself the care that you need, whether that's taking a nap or going for a walk, doing some breathing, just drinking a glass of water, whatever it is. So I would say limit your exposure to the news, and also work on practices to become more self-aware of how your body, your mind is responding to this stuff.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would also say that that there are very few new news stories. Most of what people call the news is actually like a reinterpretation of the thing we already heard about. So there was a moment where it was new that the data was coming out that Black people were being killed by COVID more than everybody else. And like, that's not new anymore. So now when you see it, it's really like the 350th interpretation of that thing. And like, who needs to see that over and over, So I've tried to like really push myself to be like, okay, interesting headline, read that story 2 weeks ago. Don't need, unless something changed with it, I don't need like a new update on it. So that's actually kept me sane, because what I realized is that when the world was a little busier, and I was reading the news, I was really just reading the same thing 50 times. Like I was reading the Washington Post version, the New York Times version, USA Today's version. Like, I don't need that. The second thing is one of the reasons why I don't follow as many people on Twitter is that I enjoy every single person I do follow. Like I love them. And some of the stuff that comes up on the timeline every day is amazing. I'm like, that was good. If y'all read the thread of Ruboy, the rooster, in Nigeria, Megan, you read the Rude
It
Boy?
was amazing. I read it. It was hilarious.
Shout out to Rude Boy. Is that like there are really some beautiful moments, and I do think that I think one of the things that the internet does is so cool is that it democratizes access to things like entertainment and news. So I learned some stuff about like Chuck E. Cheese. Did you see the Chuck E. Cheese tweet today? That Chuck E. Cheese realized that people weren't buying, they wouldn't order from Chuck E. Cheese, like they wouldn't order pizza from Chuck E. Cheese. So they opened up a pizza shop called Pasquale's Pizza, which is actually one of the characters' names at Chuck E. Cheese, and like they do really well. And you're like, that's great. Not a news article, but great. So I've like really pushed myself to redefine what is news. So like if news is information, and I'm getting a lot of information every day, news doesn't have to just be CNN and MSNBC. And I need a good article about how to cut my hair. That's what I need, is an article about how to get these beady beads out of here.
YouTube, you got to be careful though. Use the guard. Use the guard.
I am,
I've been cutting my husband's hair. I'm doing really good. I have like photographic proof. I'm doing very good. I will say, I will say when it comes to news also, it's sometimes like we're being inundated on Twitter. So it's kind of what you said, D-Ray, right? Like you've carefully curated your feed so that there's joy there and you can laugh and you enjoy what you're reading. Sometimes it can be difficult. We don't understand that we're just seeing a bunch of headlines on our social media feeds as we scroll, and those headlines are also impacting us and shaping what we think to be true about the world and how maybe devastating things seem. So I say, you know, to the best of your ability, I realize that there is, you know, a real addiction to social media, but to the best of your ability to really limit your exposure. Maybe you do it in small windows and you're like, I only look at social media for this amount of time every single day, because, or do what D-Ray did and carefully curate your feed to just be joy. But, you know, recognize that even when you're scrolling, you might not be on CNN or Washington Post or whatever, reading something, but even when you're scrolling, you're taking in negative information, and to just be careful of that. So we have another question, and this one's for you, D-Ray, specifically. D-Ray, thoughts on therapists, and specifically a Black therapist, to help cope not only with the stress of the virus, but also the race issues during the virus.
Like, should people have Black therapists? Like, what's the question?
Yeah, I think the question was actually asking for names, but I think just your thoughts on a therapist and whether or not, you know, you think having a Black therapist or at least a racially informed therapist is important.
Yeah, so for me, I have a mixed therapist, and he's good. And you know, I found him through the Heal House website. Heal House is in Brooklyn, and they obviously everything's virtual, but like they had all these therapists on the site. Vast majority of people of color. I think there's one non-person of color who was there, and I signed up for like a free consultation. We had a good conversation, and we're probably on week 6 with him, and it's good. You know, I found that because I went to a white therapist like maybe 6 months ago, and I felt like he could give me very good advice sort of about life that wasn't informed by race. So things that like were a life that, you know, was like, I had a tough conversation with this person. I don't understand how to do it. Like the race part about it, he wasn't great at, but like you were being defensive, he can name it. Like those sort of things he can name really well. And I wanted to figure out if I could get, what would it be like to be with somebody who like just understood the race part, right? Like, or the queer part, like they just got it already and I didn't have to like build their capacity to understand me in that way. So it's actually been really powerful. I still think that we need to normalize, this is like the difference between like access and quality, is I think that we need to like normalize how to get a therapist, because I think I'm pretty in the know, and Lord knows like signing up was actually not as quick or easy or seamless as I wanted it to be. It was like I signed up on the website. They had me choose a time. Then I get a message being like, that time is really not offered. This is the new time. Then I get like an email. You know, it's like this, if I wasn't like committed to this in my own world, I'd have dropped this like a hot potato 3 weeks ago, which is like what I did the last time I signed up for therapy, because like getting to a therapist actually took way more steps than I thought it would.
Yeah, and as a therapist, I understand because there is a shortage, especially therapists of color. So like D-Ray, like if you hit those roadblocks, in the beginning, don't give up. Then, a lot of times you can just Google like therapists for this, in your area who might specialize in like racialized trauma, or anxiety, whatever it is. So I would say Google. Some primary care facilities are building psychology within that. I would say if it's something that you feel like you might need now or in the future, get on it now, because these therapists are going to be book, just because now everybody's moving to telemedicine, and everybody's having to adjust. So a lot more people are going to start seeking help. So I would say don't put it off until you're just completely, in a point of distress. Be proactive, go ahead. And if you can't access a therapist, another option, which is typically more expensive, is a life coach. A life coach can help you as well. You have social workers as well. I don't know as far as like social worker, what their price points are, but a life coach is another option, but that's not gonna be covered by insurance or anything like that. But I would say either start with your primary care physician or go to Google, ask your friends if they know anybody who they've been going to, or other options. So we have some other questions in here. I want to make sure we get to them before we time out. Okay, so this question is for me. So stress relief, self-care often comes from external sources, massage, nail care, being with the community. Any other recommendations so folks are more self-reliant or aware of other ways to commune? Any ways to start the day or interval practices to better hold ourselves throughout the day? I recommend is develop yourself a morning and a nighttime routine, something that grounds you in the day. I journal every morning. The first line I write in my journal is, today's gonna be a great day. I affirm that. And then what you do when you affirm things like that, it primes your brain to look out for evidence that this is gonna be a great day. Rather than watching the news first thing and seeing something negative, now you primed yourself to notice all the negative things throughout the day. So definitely start with the morning and nighttime routine. Journaling is a great option. That way you can kind of keep track of how your day went, how your mood went. Definitely add in some physical activity. Get your body moving. Your mind is as healthy as your body. So that also includes being aware of what we eat. Right now we're in quarantine. A lot of us eat a lot of carbs and all these sugary stuff, all these feel good stuff. Find some balance. If you're going to do that, make sure you work out. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Just find some things in balance. And I have a lot of resources on my Instagram page at Makita Smiles too. And I'm not going to take all the time to list them off here. But and also getting on communities like this where you can share. So we can't be in person, but as often as you can, engage your family or your friends on social media in a positive way like this. Okay. All right. So we're going to move to the next question. So Megan, this is for you. You are officially raising a coronial. Do you anticipate things returning to normal or continuing in a new normal? How are you adapting both in mindset and in routine?
Yeah, I am raising a coronial. I heard about that and and I was like, oh my gosh, names for everything. Yeah, I don't anticipate it returning to normal. I anticipate it being a new normal, and I'm having to. So naturally, just as a new mother, a first-time mother, I already had a level of just like your natural anxiety. You try and keep the kid alive. So your natural like wanting to do everything right, and now with this on top of it, I recognize that there's just going to have to be a new normal, and a lot of that centers around how we interact with our families and friends. Because I've experienced quite a bit of sadness just about like him not seeing my mom for a while and not being able to see our family and have them bond with him at this time. And so a lot of what I plan to do is to shift the way that I think about that and connect where we can, but also not give myself all the way over to the anxiety. So there are certainly safe ways that I think that we can interact, and I'm sort of coming around to employing those ways, because what I don't want is to look back and think, oh man, his entire first year, he wasn't around, his grandmother or whatever. Black people, we're just extremely communal, and family is so huge for us. It's so huge for me. And so there's that balance. And so I think I went all the way to the extreme. And so my new normal is to try to find safe ways to interact.
All right, thank you, Megan. Okay, next question. I just started an equity inclusion leadership position when we got shut down. I'm fully grasping how much energy this takes from me emotionally, with keeping up with the COVID disparities, and now sitting with Black murders again. How can I maintain mentally and emotionally while growing in this position that requires me to stay present for the people that are looking to me?
I think that, so one of the things that I'm always reminded, right, is like this question of what does it mean to organize? So the way that we know whether it's organizing or not is that if the end goal is a change in an oppressive system or structure. That's how we know. So if we're doing something and it can be good, like programming is really good, mobilizing is really good, these things are great, not always organizing. Organizing always ends at like a changing oppressive system or structure. I think when we understand that, we realize that like the outcomes don't change for the better when a crisis happens, or they change because something at the structural level changes. So I spend most of my time around policing, which is the first project I ever did with the Austin Justice Coalition. And like, when we look at the data in 2020, the police have killed at the exact same rate in March and April of 2020 as they did in March and April of 2019. Nothing changed. The numbers are the same. They're actually like a little bit higher in 2020, right? And what makes that really wild is that we are seeing historic decreases in arrests all at the same time, right? Like, because everybody home, we're seeing people released from prison in concert all across the country at the same time. Like, and the police are still killing people. And am I shocked? I'm like a little like, whew. But I'm also reminded that if nothing changes at the structural level, then like, why would the outcomes change? So I'm not like, it doesn't make me hopeless. It doesn't make me sad. It reminds me that like, these things remain the case until we like change something in the structure. And what we should do is use this moment to like energize people to be like, again, all the things they told you we couldn't do, we're doing. They said there was no money for healthcare. We found the money. They said that we could never give money to every American. We figured out how to give people $1,200. Like, all the things literally they told you were impossible are possible, right? So we should use this moment to like re-energize people, and we don't have to use abstract ideas anymore. We literally can be like, hey, $3 trillion. Like, we can show people real life things because it just happened.
Yeah, I think that's D-Ray, a really good way to look at some of this stuff, right? To think about, nope, like no longer can y'all tell us anything. Y'all have shown us that things are possible. I also think, just as someone who, basically fights to dismantle oppressive systems every single day in my job, that there is a need to not just practice mental wellness as like a one-off, right? So we're in COVID, or I'm having a bad day or whatever, and so now today I'm going to try meditation. I think that it's important to build in practices every single day, especially as you're doing like equity inclusion as a profession, right? Because you're likely encountering some resistance in your organization, and also trying to fight on the outside of your organization. So it's important to not see it like I have to, take a trip or I have to like go get a massage. It's important to see it as an everyday practice to build in ways to take care of yourself. So some of the ways that I do that, because my job is to fight the criminal justice system, is I don't watch criminal justice shows after work, and I don't watch shooting videos to the extent that I can help it. Sometimes we need to do something about this, because sometimes the videos come up and they automatically play, and you're like, whoa, 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 So things like that. I try my best to just limit what I do when it comes to criminal justice in my outside of work. Whereas like normally, before I had this job, I might be at every march. I might, be doing all of those things. And sometimes I still do that, but now I have to give myself permission to create boundaries and to not view that as like not being all the way down, right? Like understanding that I have to show up where I can, but I also have to take care of me, and the sustaining joy is really, really important for the work that I do. And so to just give yourself permission to create the boundaries that you need to sustain joy.
All right, and last question that came in, suggestions of some of your favorite wellness sites or apps. There's so many. One I do want to mention real quick, Headspace. It's this like meditation mindfulness app. They actually decided to give a free subscription for a year. I think normally it's like $70 for the year, but they're giving a free subscription for the year for anybody who's unemployed, healthcare workers. So if you Google Headspace free for a year, you'll be able to find, and I think I might have put it in my bio on Instagram, but there's that's for meditation. Megan, do you guys have any wellness sites or apps that you enjoy?
I like Headspace. I'm trying to like understand wellness as a practice better myself. So I'm listening to your suggestions. Like, girl, like let me know.
Yeah, me too. Headspace is good. I'd also just listen to white noise. Like I put it on for my kid and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. So just listening to white noise, which really honestly I just YouTubed white noise and it came up and I just play it on loop. Has been really, it helps me just to kind of push the thoughts out. And then also we will be providing some resources. So if you check back on our various websites, you'll be able to see some resources. We also now have a Spotify playlist, and every time we have a webinar, we will be adding to that playlist just of some songs that we think make you feel good and it maybe help relieve some stress.
Yeah, for sure. And Megan mentioned YouTube. YouTube is a encyclopedia of wellness stuff, and that's where I've learned a lot of my wellness practices, found a lot of wellness books. Just type in whatever you need on YouTube and you will find something for you.
Yeah, so pretty much out of time. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for your engagement, for your questions. We really, really appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate D-Ray for joining us today and just being vulnerable and just sharing, some practical tips with people. Please be sure to check back with us in 2 weeks. So we'll have these webinars every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, June 1st at 6 p.m. CST, we will be having the reality of productivity. It's all about kind of reframing what it means to be productive in this time. You can stay connected at our various ets that you see down here in our various platforms. And feel free to join the community online, chat in the chat rooms, and check out our website. And we are excited to continue this journey with y'all. We have a lot of good stuff coming up. So thanks a lot, everyone.